The idea was, I want to see this. It's that simple.
It's the story of my life. 168 pages full of dick jokes set in a convenience store, written in one night.
When we watched it, I was just like amazed and very funny. It was just, you know, it was so weird to see myself on screen.
Kevin wrote the script. It's his dream. He wants to make this movie. He's gonna get it done, and we're gonna sit and watch it, and that'll be awesome.
Oh, we totally do.
Kevin was inspired by Slacker, and that was a small film that inspired Kevin. And Clerks has definitely become a small film that's inspired other people.
So I was not going like, this is going to be the bridge or the doorway or the start of something. Clerks was me going, I just want to see it.
You know, we didn't have a vision board or some shit that was like, that we saw it all, but...
What's really great, here it is 3 decades on, that the relevancy of Clerks still resonates with people.
Whenever I look back on that film and for the rest of my life, it'll always be like, nothing will ever touch it.
Anybody that I run into I tell them, you can do that, because I did it somehow. And I'm pretty much a moron, so I believe you can do it too.
Yeah, your father's beaming from ear to ear up there in heaven, because he started getting more and more faith into Kevin, and then, like I said, sometimes...
Put more and more faith into Kevin, less into God. Or he may be burning in hell, looking up at him like, you son of a bitch! I was heaven-bound until you made that fucking Clerks! We'll find out in a few years.
Still, like, the fact that that little black and white, like, foul-mouthed thing has once again become this like huge thing with so many branches and gone around the world.
And still pushing the genre, still pushing cinema forward, which I think is so critical.
We're not even supposed to be here today.
I stand before you as a creature created by what became of Clerks. The intention for Clerks was much different than the result. I did not intend in making a little black and white movie to sequelize that film, to have interconnected movies, to see Jay and Silent Bob more than once. No plans whatsoever.
You know, we were young too, so it's like at 21, I think my expectation was twofold. One was just, I didn't want to get a job. I didn't really, you know, graduate with a degree or anything like that. And I did really just want to make movies. And Kevin and I were really close friends, and it was like, oh man, like I'd rather just go into debt doing this than like trying to get a normal job and paying off some debt, so. And
most of the best art, creations, anything in life comes from selfishness. It's a very masturbatory act to be like, I want to produce this result. I'm going to produce this result by myself. And that's what an indie filmmaker thinks like.
But I think, like, as far as the question is, like, while you're making it, are you sitting there daydreaming about what happened? And I wouldn't say that at no point does it cross your mind, you know? Because there are, I think there's levels of expectation. We all exist with levels of expectations.
I kind of went into it sort of ignorance is bliss. I had never acted before. I was never in a play or anything. So I really didn't have any expectations.
Reading it, I was living with a bunch of friends at a house off campus of Rutgers University in New Brunswick. And I remember the NBA playoffs were going on, and my friends were downstairs in the living room watching that while I was upstairs reading the script and being like, this is hilarious. And coming down trying to tell them and read them just some of the scenes and some of the lines. They're like, shut up, Patrick Ewing's at the foul line. And I'm like, don't worry, he's gonna miss. It's not gonna make any difference.
And then when we actually did the filming, again, with no experience, I didn't know about filming, so it was literally like learning on the fly.
We were all in the same boat together, learning as we went along, because yes, some of us had theater experience, some of us had no experience, but none of us had movie experience.
For me, it was just, I didn't really get the process. Like, I didn't get anything about it except for like, hey, here's a script and here's your character, and you memorize the dialogue.
Rehearsing and actually filming this, it was definitely something different that wasn't seen in mainstream films that I can remember. And so thinking that it was something special back then, yeah. Thinking that it was something that a lot of people would find special was completely an unknown.
For me, it just seemed like it was something fun, and I didn't really, again, I didn't really get that there was a possibility of it being something.
You know, I think we all had the same expectations for Clerks, the core group of us, which was, you know, we're going to prove that we can make a movie and show it to somebody, be it a studio or what have you, and hopefully they would give us money for another project.
But all of those expectations are based on other cases, right? So there is like the Sam Raimi thing, like, let's make this one, and then we can show a bunch of dentists and raise more money to make a second one, or like, which I think that's how he did Evil Dead 2.
I just felt like we can maybe sell it to some distributor, and if not, I could four-wall it. I'll just take it around New Jersey and rent out movie theaters and show the movie and do the press myself and whatnot. But really, it was like, maybe someone will see this and in the future give us money to make a proper movie. You know, somebody else's money, not me doing this on credit cards or something like that.
It was really like, oh, this will be a calling card, and then, you know, we'll do this for $27,000, and then we'll get $50,000 of somebody else's money, and then we'll be on our way.
Because unlike any other artist, if I'd chosen music, I could have opened my mouth and belted out. You'd know exactly what my self-expression was, what I was trying to say. If I was a painter, I'd take a blank canvas, throw some color on it, and you'd know what I was trying to say. There would be my self-expression. I chose film, which is one of the dumbest art forms on the planet. It's also crazy expensive. Film is one of the only art forms where the creator, the artist, says shit like this. I need to say something. I need to self-express. Give me $20 million and Ben Affleck.
Can I just offer you a piece of advice? You know what this script needs right here? Like an old lady that says curse words.
And I keep thinking to myself, but how is this going to happen? Where is it really going to come from? And is he going to get hurt along the way?
Emotionally? Or physically? Were you worried I'd get beat up? Like, what if he gets in bed with some of those bad film people who make pornos and they break his arm, break his nose?
God, please, never.
I mean, I think, you know, Kevin and Scott probably knew what the plan was, but I think for the rest of us, we weren't really sure what the plan was. It was just kind of like, we're going to make a movie, and I know Kevin had just come from film school. That's where he met Scott and Dave. So I kind of thought it was something that he was doing more so for his film school than, you know, the intentions of it coming out.
I don't know how long it took him to edit it, but when he was done, I remember we sat down in an RST video and we watched it in the video store on little Steamback editing machine way back then. And I was like, oh, cool, I got to see the movie, and it's done. He like finished and made it, and he's super happy.
I didn't talk to them pretty much for the whole summer until like the fall, when he's like, hey man, we're gonna be submitting this for a film festival. We'd love you to come and see the film and things like that.
The IFFM becomes this, like, the low point, becomes the true low point, right? So we have that screening at the IFFM. And to talk about expectation, the focus or expectation is we will have this screening at the independent feature film market, and that will be the thing that we will use to get money for the next one, or et cetera, because that was the expectation, or the goal, more specifically, is like, we'll go there.
First time we showed the movie, nobody was there. We wanted like a big crowd. The idea was you're supposed to pack a bunch of people into the IFFM screening, the independent feature film market, and then hopefully something would happen from there. Barely anybody was there except the cast and the crew.
And when we got together for the screening, we were sort of standing out front, everybody. And you could tell Kevin was nervous and Scott was nervous. And, you know, people were coming into the theater, and it wasn't a lot of people.
There was one guy there, Bob Hawke, who would change the story the next day.
I didn't know that almost everybody in that theater was connected with the film. As far as I can tell, there's only one other industry person there. It was an actress who was hanging around the market hoping to get cast in something.
we had done rehearsals and I heard all this dialogue, but it wasn't until you saw it on the big screen I was like, good God, this is a filthy little movie. No wonder people are leaving here. We're just seeing the strangest, the snowballing. What are we doing here?
We were the only people in the screening, and then there was like Bob Hawke, who had no credentials on, so we were like, who? It's like, he could be anybody.
They didn't know who I was. On my badge had my name, and it had Film Arts Foundation, San Francisco or something. It did not say I was on the Sundance Advisory Selection Committee.
But after that screening, we screened at 11 o'clock, October 3rd, 1993. By 1 o'clock, my life was over. At 10:30, heading into the city, I'm like, what's going to happen? I might become Richard Linklater. And by 1 o'clock, I was like, I'm not Richard, I'm just a dick. And what am I going to do now that I've wasted all this money making this movie? And oh my God, my only plan was to take it to the IFFM.
But that was the first time that it was like you can see Kevin visibly bummed out. I think, and that's what he has to do. He wrote, he directed this thing, he had expectations for it. And it was a little, I don't want to say it was sad, but it was a little depressing to see how dejected he was after that screening.
We'll find a way to take care of everything else. And I figured at that point, every year I'd invite my friends over, we'd pop in this VHS, and I'd watch the worst decision I ever made and stuff. And so mercifully the next day, Bob Hawke started talking to people, and people started calling.
I was telling the Museum of Modern Art about Clerks. And of course, one of them called up Kevin.
Larry Kardish from New Directors, New Films, which is the sister film festival, the New York Film Festival. You can only do it once in your career. He was like, I hear the movie's amazing, send me a copy. And I was like, who is telling all these people about the movie? And they're like, there's this guy, Bob Hawke, who we all trust his opinion. He said it was the undiscovered gem of the festival. And he started the ball rolling. The very next day, I never had a downturn thought about Clerks for the rest of my life.
Just hearing that, it's like, oh, there was somebody actually at IFFM that actually saw the film, loved it, and so we may be going to Sundance.
The fact that our little movie that we made with 3 core people and some friends other than that, our crew was never more than 6 or 7 people. And so we made this little movie and it goes to fucking Sundance, and it's mind-blowing. I don't remember what I thought at the time, but now, looking back on it, it's absolutely mind-blowing.
I'd only ever seen the movie publicly exhibited once at the IFFM, and there was just the cast and crew there. Here I got to see it with strangers who paid money, who were not friends of mine. And I had confirmation that I could be funny in film. Because when you make a comedy, it's very easy to gauge how you're doing with the audience. If they're laughing and not at you, but with you, and all the spaces you engineered they would laugh, you're home free. You're like, wow, this is actually absolutely working out.
I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. This is our last screening, so this means a lot to us. And we've had a great time. It's been a great 8 days thus far. We still got 2 more to go. The food's been free. You can't ask for anything more.
And everyone wants to root for, the kid that looks like hell. This little scrappy black and white movie. Clearly, these kids don't know what the fuck they're doing, but somehow they pulled it together. A little piece of outsider art, man. And that's where we got bought by Miramax.
And all of a sudden, I remember him being like, oh my God, we went to Sundance and it got bought and people are going to see it. It's going to be on movie screens. And we had a party at, I think it was like a steakhouse. I forgot the name of the place at this point.
We all went to, I think it was a Chili's in New Jersey, where we had a kind of like a congratulations party that the film got distribution.
Even after they buy it and before the movie comes out, then we're on the road. Then we go to Cannes. Then we go to Munich Film Festival and Denver and Mill Valley, and they just got us running around with the film, promoting it.
I learned that I could come out after a screening and win an audience back. I was in the Houston World Fest with Scott Mosier. Scott and I went to every festival. And in Houston, there was, we did a screening and then a Q&A afterwards. And after the Q&A, we were ardent cigarette smokers in those days, so we ran outside to fucking feed the cancer genes. And we're standing outside behind a door, and the audience is coming out. And so we can hear them, but maybe they don't see us and shit. And, people are coming out, chit-chatting, and it's all very positive. There's two dudes walk out, and one dude goes, what'd you think? And the other guy goes, I thought the movie sucked, but I thought that fat guy was funny. And right then and there, I realized I have a second bite at the apple. If I lose him with the movie, I get up and talk afterwards, could spin him, could turn ahead a little bit. Maybe, he won't talk good about this one, but if there's another one, maybe he'll give us another chance.
And so it was such a fun experience because, and even for Miramax, it wasn't like they were like, well, this will make or break the studio in the fourth quarter, right?
We got picked up by Miramax, which was a Disney company. Like, the whole thing was just like, this movie does not compute. We keep sort of chugging along and sort of more and more things. It was like, we were like a magnet attracting all these little metal pieces that didn't quite make sense.
I had mixed emotions when I found out that we were going into theaters, because all of the steps that Clerks was taking, I don't know that they were that great for me, because it's always going to be a great movie. It's never going to be a good-looking movie. I can look on it now. It's got this garage band kind of fucking look to it, which is cool. But again, at the time, it was a calling card for Kevin and Scott, absolutely. But it was not really a calling card for me, aside from the fact that I was going to keep working with them.
And, as a filmmaker, I was more concerned with making a film that would actually find distribution. I wasn't thinking about what would happen if there was distribution. So as much as we enjoyed life with Clerks out in the world, at first for almost a year on the festival circuit, and then for, almost a year of theatrical life. Like, it played out in Los Angeles at the Laemmle Sunset 5 for 1 year straight. Longer than it played in New Jersey or New York and stuff. So for me, the story was like, well, there it is. Like, I'm a name in this business and blah, blah, blah. I didn't realize the story was about to happen when it went to home video.
And it was that kind of thing where that word of mouth, the handing off of this VHS copy of Clerks, is when things started to go like, whoa, people love this movie, especially the college scene really enjoyed and embraced this independent film, just like music in the 90s, early 90s became with grunge and this kind of garage band mentality and independent music getting out there. It was just a really something in the air that made independent projects in general so desirable.
It comes out on home video, and all the video, companies would keep like statistics on rentals and blah. And one of the statistics was which titles get stolen the most, like people don't return.
We were talking to one of the higher ups from Blockbuster, and he said, guys, you have the most stolen movie in Blockbuster at the moment, or whatever it was. And it was like, wow, that was a little feather in our cap. It was like, wow, that's interesting. People are stealing it? I said, you sure they're not renting it and then smashing it? Like, what did I waste my $3 on?
And we had sort of climbed the ranks of that. And so there was always that movie just kind of, the audience kept building. And so the experience was always kind of more like watching it happen.
Was I right? Like, would this be funny to other people? And my big curiosity was Jason Mewes. I always wondered, would anyone outside of Monmouth County, where we grew up, would anyone outside of Highlands, New Jersey, find him funny? And for years, even before I became a filmmaker, I'd always be like, you're funny, man. Somebody should put you in a fucking movie one day. And I was that guy. And here I got to find out whether Jason Mewes was funnier or not.
He's like, but I'm writing another movie, and I'm writing our characters, Jay and Bob, in it again. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. And he's like, but the cool thing, this is like a studio movie.
God, you can't just turn regular people into movie stars.
Noise, smoking weed. Pack a rice, my good man. Time to kick back, drink some beers, and smoke some weed.
The beauty of Jay and Silent Bob being portable. Because think about it, Miramax bought Clerks, and Jay and Silent Bob were part of Clerks, so that would mean that Jay and Silent Bob could only show up in movies that Miramax made.
I do remember, like, lawyers at Miramax got in trouble because they gave us, because they released it. Because we, like, said, this is my memory of it, which is, I don't remember Kevin, I'm sure it was like, maybe it was totally conscious, where he's like, I'm going to build out this whole kind of world, but I felt like it was partly out of, like, he wanted to put them in the movie.
But early on, I knew I was going to put Jason Mewes in Mallrats. And I knew that Mallrats wasn't going to be at Miramax, it was going to be at Universal. So we were closing the Clerks deal. Like, we made a deal up at Sundance for a yellow legal pad paper with David Lindy, who went on to run Universal, oddly enough, years later. But, you know, then they do the real paperwork when they get off the mountain and stuff, and that takes a protracted period of time, about 2 months. So my lawyer at the time, he was like, we're about to close. Is there anything else you want? And I was like, yes, there's one more thing that I know I want. And I didn't ask for much, right? He said, but this we need. I know I'm taking Jay and Silent Bob and put them in Mallrats, and that's for Universal. But I know they're also in Dogma, which I'm going to do for Miramax. So I want to be able to borrow Jay and Silent Bob, do them in another movie, even if Miramax don't own that. And he goes, you want to own the characters? And I was like, I mean, is that possible? He goes, it's fucking law. Let's find out.
You know, luckily, those guys didn't think anything of Jay and Bob in Clerks. Luckily, like if you notice, I'm not even on the poster. Like, Kevin's on the poster, but he's on the poster as director Kevin Smith, not as like Silent Bob, because they thought in the beginning, like, this movie's called Clerks. It's about the clerks and the girlfriends, and who cares about the two guys that hang out front?
Man, that's how we did it in the 90s, son.
Basically, not only did Jay and Silent Bob get approved for Mallrats, but basically Kevin retained the rights to those characters. Like, it's bigger than that.
He comes back and he talks to me and he goes, congratulations, you own Jay and Silent Bob. And I was like, what? How did that happen? He goes, surprisingly very simple. I went in and I said, Kevin Smith, very interested in retaining ownership to the characters of Jay and Silent Bob. And they were like, who's Kevin Smith? And I reminded them that you made Clerks, and they were buying it, and they were like, oh yes, the movie about the convenience store people. I said, yes. And they're like, who are these characters? And the lawyer said, they're the two characters that stand outside the convenience store.
At the time, I was like, the movie hadn't come out, and I think people were just like, okay, like, go ahead. Like this is like the guy who doesn't talk and the scrawny little cursing machine. Like, go ahead, like, have at it. Like, what do you think you're gonna do with that? You think that's gonna spawn a movie?
And I asked my lawyer, I was like, why'd you tell him that I wanted to own them? And he's like, well, I told him that Jay, his real name is Jay. And your name is Silent Bob in the movie, and you didn't use your real name, but you did use his name. And he's super paranoid that he is going to now be owned by Disney. So this piece of paper saying that you own Jay and Silent Bob will give him comfort to know that he's not going to be owned by Mickey Mouse. And I was like, they bought that? And he goes, you're both from New Jersey. Of course they bought it. So at that point, I was like, I get to do whatever I want. And he was like, yeah, they're yours in perpetuity.
Get the fuck out of here!
I've learned and not learned so much over the years. Like, I really wish I paid more attention to some things, and yeah, it's just, there's so much involved in, like, having a script and owning the rights, and when it passes over, if it gets sold, like, it doesn't just get sold and bought by somebody, and you have to ask them, because it might be this person who owns that, but this person owns, it's like, it's crazy.
Because honestly, when we even went to make a Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, it was like, I remember that basically, like, I remember we go to make that movie, and I'm like, all right, well, now you have to negotiate with us. Because Kevin owns the characters. Yeah, I really think it was like, you know, once again, like, I'm not comparing it. And this is, I don't know my stories that well, but, like, didn't George Lucas basically be like, I want the toys? And they're like, fuck you, whatever, take it.
And my lawyer was like, these are the exact words spoken by the Miramax lawyer that granted you ownership of your characters. The exact quote was, the movie's called Clerks. It's about the guys inside the store, not the guys outside the store. Let them have Jay and Silent Bob.
It's a savvy business move on his part to keep the rights of those two characters, to carry on that View Askew world, that New Jersey kind of linchpin, to carry all these other stories around.
And Jay and Silent Bob have been an umbrella for my entire life, man. It's been valuable. Think about this, to put it in context. Owning Jay and Silent Bob, not quite as financially lucrative, but it's almost like just owning R2-D2 and C-3PO out of Star Wars, where it's like, no matter what they do another one of these fucking things. They got to come to Jay and Silent Bob. They got to come to C-3PO and R2-D2. They wind up in all these things. And We own them, man.
It's my surprise?
No.
So it's been like this incredible gift and umbrella, and has allowed me to take the characters anywhere. I've taken them, then took them to Universal, took them back to Miramax for Chasing Amy, and back to Miramax for Dogma, Dimension for Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Weinstein Company for Clerks 2, now Lionsgate for Clerks 3.
Jay and Silent Bob are clearly the C-3PO and R2-D2. I mean, they've been here since the first movie, which was the last time they were cool, but they've been with the franchise so long, they still give them cameos and put them on the lunchboxes.
The unlikeliest aspect, I feel, of the Clerks story is all the adjacents and adjuncts that came along with it. For example, you make Clerks and you're like, well, there it is. It's its own thing and it'll never keep going. We made sequels, obviously. We made toys. There are Clerks in action figures. Never mind all the merchandise that has come off of this movie. You would think it was a fucking Star Wars, the amount of like toys and t-shirts and tchotchkes we've gotten out of this movie. But I think the weirdest place that the movie ever went that nobody saw coming was the cartoon. Like, we did a Clerks cartoon for ABC.
And that was like, this is the least likely movie that needs an anime. All we do is talk. Like, you know, you could use cardboard cutouts as the cartoon, as the animation, and we'll just talk. We'll just, you know, move our mouths or something.
Where I was ecstatic, to be honest with you. I was like, really? Yeah, let's do this.
Kids, there used to be 3 fucking networks back in the day, and we were on one of them. Like, the one that was huge. It was crazy. The idea came about not because, like, I was like, I want to make a Clerks cartoon. Dave Mandel, who had written for Seinfeld for many years, he was an SNL guy. He then went to Seinfeld. He's since gone on to Veep. He did the last few seasons of Veep and whatnot. He finished up Seinfeld. When Seinfeld was done, all the studios went for the writers and made huge overall deals with them. So Dave had a deal at Touchstone Television that was worth like millions of dollars. And they were like, what do you want to do? And he was like, I want to meet the guy who made Clerks because I think we should do a Clerks cartoon.
We're Dante and Randall. All we do is talk and say dirty things. How is it going to be on ABC? They're going to be bleeping it every 2 minutes.
Once we kind of sat down and had the discussions about what it was going to be, and also it's like, you just know, like, you're like, we're not going to be able to, no one's going to fuck a dead guy in the bathroom, and you know, there's not going to be donkey strip shows. Like, when you kind of know that's not going to happen, then, and we knew that, so we're like, how else are we going to be funny?
And so Dave comes down to Red Bank, and, you know, he had this great pitch. This was the pitch that, like, you know, we didn't have to convince me. I was like, cartoon? Of course. But this was his pitch. He goes, I want to do stuff like, since they work in a video store, it gives us a chance to do all these like pop culture jokes and movie jokes. And I was like, oh, like references? And he's like, well, he's going, I want to do this one bit where like they're talking about watching a movie called Flintstones List. And I was like, what's that? And he's like, well, do you remember how Spielberg, in the same year he made Schindler's List, he also produced the Flintstones? And I was like, yeah. And he was just like, well, I want to do this bit where we're watching Flintstones List, Dante and Randall watching this video, and you see a scene from the movie, and there's a train car pulled up, and they're all getting loaded onto the train, and then the door closes, very stoic. Then all their feet come out the bottom of the train, and the train walks away. I was like, I can't make that joke. He goes, I'm Jewish, so I can. And I was like, welcome to the club.
I just remember them saying, you know, there's going to be a Super Bowl commercial. Holy shit, I'm going to watch the Super Bowl, and my cartoon's going to be on in one of the commercials. So that was like, all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, the animated series is even going to be huge. Like, fucking shit, man, this Clerks, man, it just keeps going. I mean, where does this end?
I remember just all of us sitting there and it being fun, and me more being excited, like, wow, I think this is going to be the next Simpsons. Like, I really thought, like, the writing was funny, and I thought it was awesome, and I really did think, like, wow, this cartoon could hit, and this is our thing. Like, we're not going to, like, we're going to be doing voices for this for years.
This is going to be awesome. We have, you know, ABC, Disney backing behind us. You know, it's better than that Comedy Central, you know, push that South Park has, and we're actual animation kind of thing.
Look, if Clerks is great timing, Clerks the animated series is terrible timing.
I think even before it aired, Kevin said the show got canceled.
So we pitched, sold, and then there was about, what, a year to make 6 episodes. By the time we turned in our episodes for airing, something unbelievable had happened at ABC. Regis Philbin hosted a game show called Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And it captured people's imagination. I don't know why. Like, Jeopardy's better. You get more questions, but regardless, captured everyone's imagination. They moved it from 1 night to 2 nights, then 3 nights a week. They were doing this in prime fucking time. And the ratings were through the roof, man. This show was huge. We turned in our cartoon at this point, and they're like, bro, look at the ratings we're getting with the game show. You kidding? They didn't air us when they were going to. We were supposed to be a mid-season replacement. We became a summer show.
They only show 2 episodes. And then the 2 episodes they're out of order. They're not even in the order we made it in, which there was a running joke throughout the 6 episodes. And so it was a major disappointment. That's the open wound that the lemon juice can be put in from time to time when people are like, yeah, that cartoon was awesome. You guys should do it again. And if we could, all of us in a heartbeat will be on a plane or we'd be in a studio tomorrow to do more episodes of that cartoon.
So there were 4 more episodes completely unaired that we put onto a home video and then eventually put out there, and that sold incredibly well. We don't have the cool story like, you know, Family Guy was a cartoon that like was on, and then it got canceled, but then because of DVD and Adult Swim, it came back. Clerks played on Adult Swim like forever, man. People were like, I saw your new show. I was like, you mean the show we made 10 years ago? Yes, they're airing it on Adult Swim. But we didn't get that second life where it's like, it came back to life, and then we started the Clerks cartoon. But for a magical 6 episodes, there was a fucking network cartoon based on our scrappy little black and white movie. And Jay and Silent Bob couldn't deal drugs, they sold fireworks. You know, and Dante and Randall couldn't curse. They had to find other ways to express themselves. But it was a good time. I think the idea was, you know, Clerks was about life in my 20s, and here I was in my 30s, and I was like, oh, I can go back to the boys. I can go back to Dante and Randall. I have a story I think I would like to tell.
He goes, I have an idea for Clerks 2. What do you think? And I'd be like, yeah, that's awesome. About time. I'd be interested to see where these guys are at. And then he gave me a brief synopsis of where the story takes place, and I'm like, that's awesome.
And I remember Moj was like nervous about it, as was Jeff.
Just randomly, he called me up out of the blue and was like, "So, what are you doing today?" I'm like, "Nothing." He was like, "You want to go grab a bite to eat?" I'm like, "Sure, why not?" We were kind of sitting there, and he launched right into it. He's like, "So, I think we're going to do another Clerks." I was like, "Excuse me, what?" "I think we're going to do another Clerks." And I was like, "No, we're not. That's a terrible idea."
Because they're like, I mean, you got a Fabergé egg. You can't fucking duplicate a Fabergé egg. Like, and plus, what if in the process of trying to duplicate that Fabergé egg, you break the Fabergé egg? What if you ruin everything about what people like about Clerks by trying to make a sequel?
What do you mean terrible? I thought you'd be excited. We're going to do it again. We're going to shoot another movie, and this time more people are going to see it. And I said, no, Kevin, it's a terrible idea. You know, Clerks, for whatever reason, became something. People like it, and they're drawn to it. You sort of can't replicate that. It came out at a time where, you know, it was like independent film was just sort of becoming a thing with Pulp Fiction. We were sort of riding the coattails of that, and it seemed very serendipitous that it came out at that specific time.
It's like, can you go back? I mean, can you go home? Can you go back? Can you recreate the same experience? I don't think you can.
People were starting to know it and quote lines, and every now and then I'd be in the grocery store and somebody would yell, "Try not to suck any dicks on your way through the parking lot." So we kind of knew something was happening, and I just thought the idea of a sequel is just going to screw this up. Like we have something that became this unique little thing. Don't mess with it. And when he told me the story of it, and he was like, yeah, we're going to be in a fast food restaurant and everything else, I said, I'm sorry, man, I'm out. I think it's a terrible idea. I don't want to do it.
Beauty of my life and career is that I've been an avatar for many people. They play you as they would an avatar of some sort. Like, well, if I was him, that's what I'd be doing. And so if you're doing things that they agree with, making stuff they agree with, they're all for it and stuff. The moment you deviate and do something that they wouldn't do, that's when they're like, oh, well, now he's sold out. He's not himself anymore. That ain't what he would do. And it's like, well, I'm the player. You're just kind of spectating. I'm the guy at the center. And I know the guy at the center makes unlikely choices. That's how we got here.
You could see all the films that led up to it was put into a Clerks 2. It had heart like the Jersey Girl film. It had debate and religious debate even, like Dogma. And it had kind of interrelationship kind of issues like Chasing Amy.
The dude who lives his life according to everyone else's standards. I gotta go to Florida and get married because that's what's expected of me. And the fucking insane part is he ain't even that crazy about the chick he's marrying or Florida. Never mind the fact that he's got a perfectly good chick right here in Jersey who he's nuts about. And even Anne fucking Frank could see she's nuts about him.
I don't remember how long it was, but I know I didn't want to do it for a very long time. And was daily getting phone calls from Kevin and some of the other guys going, come on, dude, why are you the holdup, man? Come on, get on board. We're just going to do it again. So at some point, I just relented. I was like, literally like, all right, let's go get this over with. It was like ripping the Band-Aid off. I was like, all right, you want so badly to fucking do Clerks 2? Let's go do it, all right? Let's get this out of your system.
If you fuck me over this time, I swear to God, I will beat the shit out of you.
You in what army?
I'm serious.
I'm serious, too. You in what army?
Promise me.
All right, get off of me, you nut.
And I remember the first day driving to the set, still going, this is a terrible idea. I knew what was going on, and I remember going, this is a bad idea, and I'm against it. And when we start doing publicity for this shitty little movie, I'm going to say I was against it because we're going to ruin this movie. I mean, literally, that's the conversation I'm having driving to the set. Terrible timing, but I'm telling you, that's the way it went.
You know what? That hurts. I think Clerks 2 succeeds on the merit of it being its own thing. It doesn't try to be Clerks at all. There's a nod to the black and white, but we don't even spend time at a convenience store that much. We're in a completely different place.
Oh, what the fuck was that?
And what it was like letting the boys grow up. Like the idea was like, what happens to the angry young man when he becomes 30?
And when I pulled into the parking lot and saw this fast food restaurant, purple and yellow, it was like, guys, what? We did a black and white movie, and now you're going to assault people with orange and yellow? Like, tone it down. This is God's honest truth. I am there feeling like nauseous on the set, like this was bad. I should have never said yes to this. I caved into peer pressure, and I just don't want to ruin that little tiny legacy that is Clerks. And, Kevin edits as we goes. And I think the second day he had edited the first scene shot. And the first scene shot was with Brian and Rosario.
You're just lucky I'm not one of those monogamists like your girlfriend. Otherwise, I might try to make you stay in Jersey.
If anyone could do it, it'd be you.
I pulled in the morning and Kevin said, Jeff, come with me. And we went up to his little hotel room, which was sort of adjacent to the set. And he showed me the scene. And I guess because I wasn't in the scene, I watched it and I was like, hey, that looks pretty good. And, Rosario's cute. Like, she belongs, she fits. And Brian's doing what Brian does. And all right. I'm gonna take a deep breath. I'm gonna sort of shake off the bad thoughts, and I'm gonna go with this for a little bit. Kevin specifically said, I cut this and I wanted you to see it because I think if you see it and could sort of take yourself out of it and process it, you'll feel a lot better about it.
And while making that movie, I had this profound kind of revelation that changed my professional life while I was editing the movie. Mind you, I've written this movie and I've directed this movie, so I know full well the contents. But while I was editing the movie, 2 in the morning, this is before I was a stoner, so it's not even like I was baked out of my mind. Just sitting in the editing room and editing the scene where Randall and Dante are in jail, and Dante, they're having a fight. They always have a fight in the third act of a Clerks movie, and Dante says,
"You obviously have such a great handle on your life. Tell me what you would do if you were in my position, or even what you'd do in your own position. Swing that judgmental pendulum back the other way and tell me how you'd solve all your problems, asshole."
And Randall gets so big, he makes himself big, like when they tell you encounter a wild animal, make yourself big. He like towers over Dante for a moment and just bellows at him. Like, it always makes me emotional. Think about it. He's like,
"I'd buy the Quick Stop and reopen it myself." That's what I'd do. That's what we should do.
That was my favorite piece of writing, because there's the guy least likely, the guy who would never show you his fucking heart. His whole brand depends on being fucking like, coarse and fucking sardonic and cynical and fuck the world and shit like that. Making fun of everything, never being like emotional about anything. And in that one glorious moment, you see who he really is. Oh, fucking love that.
You're my best friend. And I love you. In a totally heterosexual way.
Yeah, right.
Please, man, don't leave me.
It gives the audience what they want, but becomes its own unique experience.
And at that time, that's what Kevin knew. And Kevin didn't know fast food. I don't think he ever worked in fast food. And it was like, this doesn't feel like you're writing about your life anymore. And, it wasn't until that last scene where Randall says, "We got to do something. We got to buy the store." And that's where you sort of got where Kevin is writing these things to sort of where he is in life.
Like, Randall is Kevin. So him, like, I'm going to raise money and buy the store back myself, is really, to me, Kevin saying, like, I'm taking the reins back and doing things exactly what I want. And this is what I want to do. Like, and the scale of it's small, right? And it's like, I don't care about what people think, and I don't care about scale. Like, that's about a character saying, like, I'm not listening to other people and what they think I should do. I'm going to do what I want to do.
I'm sitting in the editing room watching it, and I was like, oh my God, like, be like that. Like, that's what you want. Never mind trying to measure up as a filmmaker. Why are you trying to fucking compete in a game you cannot win? You will never be as good as anybody else. But you could be the absolute fucking best, Kevin Smithiest fucking of it all. Boy, oh boy, just lean into, stop running away from who you are and trying to make better things. Make the fucking things you want to make. Fuck everybody else. Buy the Quick Stop and reopen it yourself.
But Clerks 2, the sort of that debate of like, what does it mean to return to your roots, was a discussion we had, because it was like, what if we did it again for like 20-something? And I was like, my opinion was like, not, I mean, everybody was probably a little part of me was just like, I don't think we didn't get paid on the first one. But the bigger thing was like, I was like, we made that movie because that was all that was available to us. Not because, like, that, the budget and the way, like, so many of those decisions were based on just like, that's it. Like, it wasn't like, hey, we could do it 20 different ways and we're going to choose to do it this way. It's like, it was there was a narrow way to make that movie based in the cost and our knowledge, and we made it. And I was like, it's not narrow anymore. It's like what it should look like, how we'll shoot it, like all of these things is much wider. So we don't have to spend a ton of money to do it, but it's like, to me, the movie was an evolution.
So yeah, when we shot Clerks 2 and it was such a big affair and trucks, and at some point we did a dance scene where 50 dancers came in and getting all these odd parts, and I don't know, it was very surreal and hard to explain, but it felt like a very different movie at the same time. It was like, we're in this different location, it's bright colors.
After chasing Amy, I got kind of brushed aside or pushed aside, kicked off the Kevin train, if you will, by fucking Harvey. And so I had to just go out and work, because every job interview I went on, one of the first questions was always, why aren't you doing Kevin's movie right now? be that Dogma or, Jay and Bob or Jersey Girl. And, I gave them my honest answer, which was this morally repugnant man does not want me to be doing it, wants Kevin to be using a more experienced and more talented cinematographer. And, whether they believed that or not, the sad, simple fact was that he didn't want me doing Kevin's movies. And so I had to go out and just fucking work. So 10 years go by, and Kevin and I had actually stayed in touch, and we remained friends. But then after 10 years, when Clerks 2 comes up, and, Harvey didn't let Kevin use the same cameraman cinematographer twice, excuse me. So it was Bob Yeoman, and then it was Jamie Anderson, and then it was Vilmos, and so I think Kevin finally said, hey, it's not the DP, it's the director that you're not happy with. So give me my guy back. And, Kevin said, hey, you want to come back? You want to come do Clerks 2? And I said, what, is Vilmos busy? And he goes, I'll give you that one. I was like, I only needed one.
I think it's one of the things that people love so much about Kevin is that he has kept his crew and his posse going strong for a really long time. And that's amazing because so many people don't look out, and you just love a good posse, you love a good group.
We had remained great friends over the 10 years, and we'd been working with other people for 10 years. So it was really interesting, and it was really a nice homecoming to get back together with my friends and now have all this experience.
Way different than the first one. The first one, I was like, I really had no idea what we were doing. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was also super nervous. Like, I literally remember like sitting there and with this camera, like even now, like the cameras, like just having the camera on me and me having to memorize this dialogue and say it in front of a camera for the very first time was like, stooch to the nooch.
First of all, this was our main job. We weren't working another job at 9 to 5. This is what we concentrated on. We spent time rehearsing.
It was a very different yet same experience, if that makes sense.
The difference was, we had a huge budget. We had a crew, catering, and, we had all these other great people and all these relationships that Kevin had developed throughout all these years from the first Clerks until then, being able to want to be cameos in the film, like Ben Affleck, like all these really great people. We were able to score Rosario Dawson as a co-star.
Bye-bye.
I like to be in all the universes. That's sort of like my goal. I know some people want to win all the different kinds of awards and stuff. For me, I just want to be in all the universes. The fact that I've made it into the View Askew universe and I get to be a part of his first trilogy in the View Askew universe is incredible.
I definitely thought, given the fact with how long it took him to convince me to do Clerks 2, he would never even ask me about another movie. And if we pushed our luck for Clerks 2, Clerks 3 is like, no. Like lightning doesn't strike 3 times, so this is it. I really felt when we were done with 2 that would be it. I mean, we sort of met these characters. We took them outside of the comfort zone, and at the end, they wind up right back where they were. To me, it felt like we tied a nice little bow on it. Clerks 2, done. Clerks, done.
Clerks 3, the original draft of Clerks 3 that I did like 10 years ago, also did not take place at Quick Stop.
Exterior, movies at Middletown, Movieplex parking lot day. This is where we spend all of the movie, outside of a movie theater.
Hurricane Sandy comes in, destroys the store. Randall kind of loses his mind a little bit, and he winds up waiting in line for an opening of Ranger Danger movie, like a big Avengers-like movie. And it was written at a time when you could still wait in a line for a movie. We don't do that anymore. You buy tickets in advance.
The day I saw the Dental School remake, which sucks, by the way, there's this kid wearing a Danger Day t-shirt just leaning against the movie with real purpose, man. He said he was starting the line for RD3, and maybe it was because Ranger Danger's my favorite character after Batman, or maybe it was just because I was already homeless, but I just thought after the last 2 years of my life, standing in line for a movie that doesn't come out for another year doesn't sound like a bad idea. So I got in line behind this kid. Then the next day, this kid's mom shows up and drags his ass back to school. So then I was first in line, man. So I started.
And Randall, while he was waiting in this line, he fabricated another version of Quicker Stop, this kind of bodega, homeless version of Quick Stop. And this whole community rose up around him around the movie theater of people that were waiting to see this movie and stuff like that.
The movie's now been set up. We're 13 pages in. The movie proper begins. Exterior Movieplex, exterior Quicker Stop morning. We're wide on Quicker Stop. Randall sips his Gatorade watching the Danger Day build that's going on in the parking lot. They're building this carnival in the parking lot.
I was very waiting for Godot.
Lo and behold, I got a script delivered to me. I'm going, Jesus, here we go again. All right.
I remember reading it and not kind of thinking that this was the way that the Clerks character should go to.
And it ended with, I wrote it following one of the first movie theater shootings, which I guess would probably be the Dark Knight shooting, where the guy went into the theater, because that was the third act of the movie. They were waiting to see this movie, and then when they're in there to see the flick, masked gunmen come in and try to like take out a bunch of people, and like Dante saves the day.
Dante lands in front of him and grabs his gun. Then the masked Ranger Death cocks his head dog-like, tight on Ranger Death's fingers as he squeezes the trigger, tight on Dante's face as the bullets hit him.
I was kind of in agreement with Jeff in a sense, like, this is a little dark. This is not comedy Clerks. This is I want to make a statement about where we are as a society kind of film, which is great, but I don't know if these are the characters to make that statement.
And when I read the original script of Clerks 3, it didn't feel right. It felt like it was really disjointed and didn't belong with the other two. It was sort of really dark. It wasn't a movie to me that was screaming to be made.
We were like 2 weeks away from traveling back east for pre, and then the thing fell apart. Me and Jeff kind of like didn't see eye to eye on it, and suddenly there was no point in trying to make the movie because the whole movie was about Randall.
So when Clerks 3 came about, it was like, Kevin, you know what? Thanks, but no thanks. The script isn't really grabbing me.
There was also issues with contracts and the Weinstein Company from Clerks 2 that never really got settled in a sense. And so that was also a thing that was in the back, floating around with Jeff and myself and others from Clerks 2.
You know, it's 10 years later. We didn't get money. We're like auditing, and it's just become this whole hassle. I don't want to do this business. I don't want to be in it. I don't like business that, rips people off. I said, this business gets away with that stuff because everybody wants to be in it. Not this guy. I don't want to be in it. I don't give a shit. I'm not doing it.
Why?
Let him know you were there, man.
I'd rather let him know I'm not an asshole.
Too late for that.
I'm really gonna miss you, man.
So with that all being put together, it just wasn't a time for that version of a Clerks 3 to be made.
That's when Randall sees a bloody Dante crumpled on the floor, covering his crying daughter.
I actually think that was a blessing in disguise because the movie that we made is far superior to the one that we would have made back then, just in script and in heart and in tone. And I think looking back, it probably would have been a shame to end the Clerks trilogy in that manner.
When I was lying there wondering if I was gonna die, I saw the whole movie of my life flash before my eyes. You know what? It sucked.
I had this heart attack like 4 years ago. It was February 2018. And you would imagine like that would have done something to me. All it did was give me a pressing sense of time. Like, oh, we're living on borrowed time. I should act accordingly. So we went and made Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, which was the post-heart attack movie. I'm alive. It's got a lot of heart attack jokes in it and stuff. But it was just bliss, just fun. Like, holy shit, I lived. Let's make a fun movie. Clerks 3 became the real heart attack movie.
Kevin's characters, the Clerks characters, I think are fairly relatable universally. Somebody's got a bad job, somebody's got a broken heart, there is something that you can see yourself in this human existence for most.
But I love the idea of like, oh shit, like what if the heart attack was a part of it? Like what if I gave, Randall or Dante my heart attack?
For this movie, he had a lot of time to think about it. He had a lot of time to really like plotted out, and he had a heart attack, you know, all these big life moments for him. So he really wrote a poignant piece. I mean, we're all so proud of, and I know he is as well.
You can always start another chapter. So live while you can. Love while you can.
Beautiful, and we cut.
Got it.
Give it up for the kids. That was magical. The origins of Dante and Randall making a movie go way back to the Clerks cartoon.
Inconvenience.
Stupid title.
But the idea was Dante and Randall were going to make Clerks, and I always found that kind of charming because I worked there and I made Clerks.
Meta.
So Jeff, I hadn't spoken to in a while since Clerks 3, the original version, had fallen apart.
So yeah, for some time, Kevin and I didn't talk for a little bit. I don't. He was probably pissed off. I wasn't pissed off, but we didn't talk for a long time. And then, you know, Kevin did have the heart attack. And after the heart attack, it was probably the first time he and I had talked for a while.
And we were doing a signing, but 2 days before the event, they were like, "Oh, Jeff Anderson's coming." And I was like, "Great." This was right after Jay and Silent Bob reboot. It was right before we went on tour, I think, maybe between the two sections of the tour. And so, you know, I saw him for the first time in a long time, chit-chatting, signed all his stuff. Then after we were done signing, we went out on the balcony, and I was like, "How you been?" He's like, "Good, good." You know, it was awkward because last time we talked was like real weird.
And he immediately launched into, "I wrote a new script for Clerks 3. Randall's gonna have a heart attack, and blah, blah, blah. It's just like my life."
But it was like my entire life flashed before my eyes.
My life flashed before your eyes.
And it was like, oh, fuck. Like, how many times can I say no to this guy? Man, he's like a fucking fly that won't get away from me.
But I was like, look, I'm just gonna put this on Front Street, man. Like, me and Affleck hadn't talked for like nearly 10 years, and like we mended fences, and he's in Jay and Silent Bob reboot, and it's like one of the best scenes I've ever shot in my life. So there's no way that you and I can't like make this work. I wanna make Clerks 3 with you, bro. I wanna see Randall do those things that I wanna see Randall do. I wanna investigate the guy that we met in that one fucking scene where we saw him for a flash. I wanna do a whole movie about that Randall.
Who in their right mind is gonna buy one of your creepy Christ kites?
I would.
You did, like 30 times.
And I remember him like just being jazzed and telling me the story of this, and he was crying. And it was so strange. Like, you know, like, all right, you know, you had a heart attack. I get it. Things are a little heavy. You know, don't cry. Here we are on a balcony. It's a beautiful California day. I mean,
Randall has a heart attack. And he goes, "That's fucking cheery." And I was like, he does. He has a heart attack and then comes out of it and he realizes he's wasted his whole life watching movies, never once thinking, what if I made one of these? Maybe I should try it.
Dude, again, it's been 20 years watching these movies, so it's instead of...
It feels like it too. I'm always thinking about the trailer moment where somebody's got to break this down. So he gets an idea, he wants to make a movie, and he tells Dante, "You're gonna help me," and they wind up making Clerks. And so Jeff's like, "Where'd you get these ideas?" I was like, just a lifetime of thinking.
And it was very heartwarming. It was very touching and incredibly personal to his own real life situations. And knowing where we were going with it, and then him reaching out to Jeff and Jeff agreeing to be a part of it, it was a huge, huge plus.
There was never going to be an opportunity for Jeff not to make Clerks 3, so we were going to get him one way or the other.
What the fuck, JoJo Siwa?
and from that new script, I got it. He had the heart attack in there, and I got a lot of his feelings from it.
37!
And I think that's where Kevin shines. Kevin shines when it's about him, when he could put some of, write what you know. And he had the heart attack, and, he put that in there, and there was a lot of feelings behind it. And it made it easier. It made it easier. It wasn't that first script that was dark and didn't feel disjointed. This was a script that felt like it could be part of this world.
So there was no how do I deal with the heart attack? I dealt with the heart attack by going vegan, changing my life, and trying to stay out of the fucking grave and stuff. For me, it was just material at that point. And, manufacture for use. It happened to me. I could use it. Fuck it. It's going in a story. Give me a great opening act. Give me a great hook to bring Dante and Randall back and tell this fucking story. Now, people who love me have a harder time with Clerks 3 than I do.
As the boys began to put, the nuances into their performances and heartbreakingly read this dialogue, regarding heart attacks.
Today, there was an 80% chance everything for me was just gonna stop.
Shit went south for me. Kevin, during the editing process, he edits while he's shooting, always. So I pretty much have old school dailies to watch almost every day. And I am laughing my ass off.
All right, here's the deal, Nurse Jackie.
What's Jack K?
And I am loving it, and I'm screaming it, even though I knew it all from the table reads, just seeing it come alive. And then he started showing me the heart attack scenes.
My wife and kid can't watch the first half hour because they're like, it's not funny, bro. That all happened to you. And I was there. And I went through those emotions and shit like that. And I was like, yeah, but most other people don't interact with my heart attack the same way you do. Most people are just like, oh, he lived, it's all good. And now it's fodder for the movie and stuff.
I couldn't. I cried. I was right back there. And I told Kevin that, I had some distance from it at this point. And, I had heard the boys reading, all of the dialogue, but to see it on a screen in front of me was a bit much. It was a bit too much.
So it exercised any demons it had for me. It made me way bigger and more powerful than the heart attack. Heart attack tends to make you feel small and powerless. Once I harnessed it, as I had for the last 4 years, and this being the ultimate example of take that heart attack, fucking ride it into the movie theater again. It's becomes a very small thing, something that once happened to you, like everything else. The way that I worked at Quick Stop when I was a kid, and that became the story of Clerks, it was kind of the modern version of that, as I had a heart attack as an adult, and that became the modern version of Clerks 3.
The fact is that he has accomplished so much for other people's sake. Gee, Kev, you told our story. You told our lives too.
My favorite aspect of Clerks 3, I've never shared this with anybody, but it has to do with you. I showed you the opening of Clerks 3 and you cried. And I was like, what are you crying about, Ma? And she goes, that was our life. She was like, we used to do that. I used to bring you to that store and drop you off. And she's going, it's so weird to watch it in a movie. I know it's the opening of your movie, but when I see it, it's like watching my life. And I was like, think of how I fucking feel. When I see it, it's like me trying to replicate that beautiful, perfect 5-year period of my life and stuff. But that did it for me. I really, the fact that you got crazy emotional watching Dante pull up to the store and reminded me, you get lost in your career, and I've never forgotten where I've come from, but at the origin of all this is that fucker who pulled up in front of the store in real life and thought, I wonder if anyone would find this interesting. And then they did.
I love the fact that Kevin leads with his nerd. He is a fan as closely as he is an auteur. He loves it so much, and he's such a resource for any kind of project over this history of cinema and nerddom. He's just got it all down. And I think that's just what makes him so beloved. There's certain directors and folks who can be very hoity-toity and very specific in their own little world, and it almost feels like oftentimes they hate everything else except for what they make, and that's just not the case with Kevin. And I think that's what makes you love it, because you know how much he loves it, and it's fun to go on the ride with someone who still, all these years later, still feels like he's making his first film.
Hello, I'm Jay, and this is Silent Bob. And we're here in the Quick Stop Convenience, where we hang out, usually out in front, but inside right now, because I'm thinking I'm gonna get a little bit of snacks.
What are you guys doing? Get the fuck out. That ain't ours.
For both Kevin and Jason, they created these characters, right, that were alter egos of themselves. And I think that they are both pleasantly surprised that it's lasted for so long, and they've got that opportunity to work together and make pretend for so long.
My mom and dad took us on vacation to California when I was 9, because I was my dad was like, the fat one likes movies. Let's go to California and see the movies and stuff. And so, you know, we took a train cross country, and there's a photo of me and my brother kneeling in front of the footprints of Darth Vader, R2-D2, and C-3PO. They had just been ensconced in the cement as well, like not too long before I'd gotten there. And so we take pictures in front of this thing. My old man showing me all the footprints, going, this is Jimmy Durant. He stuck his nose in the cement. This is this one, this is this one. And then my old man says something to me that you just say to a fucking kid. He wasn't laying no seeds. He wasn't like brilliant. He didn't see this coming. He just said some shit that you said to a kid. Kid likes baseball. Like, maybe you play for the Yankees one day. There we are in the courtyard, and my dad, who were looking at all the footprints, and clearly I'm taken with this. Clearly this all means something to me. These people must be important, whatever the fuck. And my old man goes, maybe you'll be here one day. And fucking 40 years later, we were sitting in that courtyard, putting our hands and feet in the fucking cement.
The last time me and my mom and my brother and my sister were in this courtyard was with my dad in 1979. It's 40 years from that moment when my father said it. This is what's left of my father, ladies and gentlemen. This is some of his ashes. This is the first time in 40 years my whole family is back together again in this courtyard, and I couldn't imagine a better fucking reason for it. Thank you, Dad.
And the fact that, you know, these two drug dealers that stood out front of the Quick Stop selling weed in the 90s, like, have their hands and feet at the Chinese theater on Hollywood Boulevard. It's amazing.
It's one of those things that seems so surreal. Like, it almost seems like it didn't happen because it's so surreal to me.
Wow, sorry. Me and Kevin are both back there crying.
I remember that day, and I remember feeling so proud of both of them and so happy for both of them.
So I was very excited when I was told, and even more exciting just being there, putting my hands there, and then Ben being there, my wife, but Ben doing a speech and chatting about us. That was awesome.
They've been hanging around the Quick Stop for 25 years, but today Jay and Silent Bob start hanging around the TCL Chinese Theater courtyard forever, ensconced in cement with all the other Hollywood legends, right where they belong. I'm really, really grateful to these two guys, and I have to say, I just love them so much.
Yeah, the whole process was great.
And again, my daughter has no idea, but, you know, Jason wrote her initials as well. It says LLM, and I'm thinking, you know, that's going to be there for at least 100 years.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're in the land of hope and dreams, and thank you for letting me hang out with you this long. I love you all.
Nothing lasts forever.
Yeah.
Unless you have made a movie that gets voted into the Library of Congress's National Film Registry, of which every year they choose 25 to be restored and venerated and kept among the most important works of cinematic art. One person who's standing behind this bar had a movie voted into the National Film Registry this past week.
That was that person is me, ladies and gentlemen.
That person is you.
So in 2019, we're in the middle of smack dab in the middle of the Jay and Silent Bob Reboot Roadshow tour. 65 cities sold out. I just got back from a jaunt over to England and stuff. And Claire, who worked with us on the movie at Legion M, sent me a text at 2 in the morning. She goes, "This year just keeps getting better and better for you." And it was a link to a story about how Clerks was chosen by the Library of Congress as one of the films for the National Film Registry that year. Mind-bending.
Just complete surprise. I mean, it hadn't occurred to me, because you can't detach yourself still from the sort of experience of making it. So there's still that part of you which is like, but we were just like 4 people in a closed down convenience store at night doing this thing. Like, we didn't have sandbags, we used cat litter.
To me, I'm an uber nerd, so I'm like, that's gonna be in that big steel thing, you know, like when the planet ends and there's that big vault up in Finland or wherever it is that has all the seeds and stuff that to make man survive. This is gonna be the entertainment that's locked in some bomb-proof vault in Washington, D.C. that this is gonna be part of the entertainment that lives on after everything else is gone.
But yeah, when we heard it was going into the library and we were in there with, you know, Platoon and, you know, Amadeus, it's like, which one of these things don't belong? This one on the end.
It doesn't totally compute that everything that happened when you sort of go back in time to while we were making it. And that was just like, it's such a huge honor. And it becomes like the validation as far as its place inside of cinema history.
That they were able to recognize that this was a touchstone and a key film in the art of making film throughout all these decades that it's been around, that I was really like touched and really like, oh my God, I've been a part of something that the government recognizes actually valuable, which I never thought that anything that I would be a part of, the government were like, that was good, son.
I want to go back in time and tell little Kevin Smith, fucking like, one day, like, the government deems your movie important. This little movie that you give so much fuck about, yeah, the United States agrees with you and puts it in the Library of Congress.
It has a relentlessness that won't let it go away, you know? And I think it's due to Kevin's script. It's due to the way that we made it, you know? It's due to a lot of different factors. It's that attitude, that fucking attitude that it's got, right? That we can go out and do this and fuck you.
The movie will live on long after us. This shitty little black and white, grainy movie, gonna live on longer than us. And that's it's a very heady trip.
It's definitely a part of me and where I came from, but it doesn't define any of us anymore. It was our start. It was the beginning of something that has become, for all of us, a 30-year career so far.
There were so many films that came out at around the same time as Clerks. Yeah, definitely bigger names and bigger budgets and all that kind of stuff. But what stands out with Clerks is the relatability in so many aspects.
I literally, at meet and greets or conventions, or if I'm down at Kevin's store, where parents will bring their older kids or even younger kids and say, remember the movie? This is the guy from that movie. And, you know, I've actually had even grandparents say, hey, I remember when I was, you know, in my 20s and these guys made this film. It really carries on.
And to have that happen on your first go-round is just, it's just incredible.
Kevin did this thing, and everybody knows the story. He sold his comic books and everything else, and it sort of opened up a world to people, or at least I hope it opened up a world to people where people could say, look, you know what? You know, I'm gonna sell whatever it is I collect. I'm gonna sell this and I'm gonna sell that, and I too can do a movie. And I hope that's what Clerks' legacy is.
The ones who tell me, like, hey man, I made a journey because you made a journey, that's honestly the best currency there is for me to spend. That's the reward, if you were looking for one. I was never in it for the money, so this has been even better, because you made an impact. You made a fucking difference. Me, a little fucking dork from New Jersey, like, made an impact in strangers' lives I'll never meet. As much as I love those cats who were just like, you made me want to be a thing, the cats who were just like, I'm just happy you made that thing, because that thing is my comfort zone. That's my happy place. I can't tell you how many fucking people I've met in my life who tell me a harrowing story about how they wanted to take their own lives, but not for Clerks. That's the movie I go to, and it kept me on this fucking earth. You're like, I just wanted to see what it looked like. I didn't know that it would have this kind of impact and stuff. But 3 decades nearly. 3 decades, and I think it'll keep going. I used to think like, well, this is the year that Clerks' goodwill runs out, but I think I might make it to the grave with this fucker. And not like just an early grave, like I almost died a few years ago, but as long as there are jobs out in the world, as long as we don't have robotic overlords that are like, you don't have to work anymore, just, you know, fucking be human batteries like in the Matrix. As long as people have jobs they don't like, Clerks will still play to somebody. Not everybody, some people like their job. But the people who are like, why am I here? That movie will always work for. And that was not the intent. The intent was to get out of the convenience store. That movie has kept me in the convenience store far longer than I was ever there when I actually worked there.